Hi, this is Rebecca Skillen, and this is Cycle 2, Week 1. Welcome back. This year I am going to be directing our community instead of tutoring every week, but I thought it might be a great way to kind of give some encouragement or walkthrough to tutors in my community if they're interested, as well as anyone who maybe followed me last year. I haven't fallen off the face of the earth. I just have a few other responsibilities than tutoring every week, like making sure that all of the science experiment equipment is ready to go and that everybody has their stuff for fine arts. We are going to start with General Assembly. In our community, that starts ideally 9 o'clock. Everybody is there so that we can have a little bit of fellowship before we start. But the goal is to get started at 9. I love in the CC Connected weekly tutor helps, and I love that they have a Foundations to Challenge weekly connection on there for the tutors also to look at. So we'll be incorporating, Foundations to Challenge weekly connections in General Assembly, as well as if they're different than the ones on the tutor helps, maybe they'll be incorporating that into their morning routine as well. We'll just see how that goes. We will also do, my goal is to do a prayer from this book every General Assembly. One of our tutors shared it with me at a dinner, and I just adore it. I did not grow up with liturgy, and I am finding such a blessing in liturgy, as well as teaching my children how to pray, because it's kind of hard to learn how to do that when you're just like, pray, and they're like, okay. So this has been helpful in just doing that, and I'm really excited to incorporate just a planned prayer for each week. The other thing that I want to incorporate into morning assembly is obviously family presentations, but also the scripture for Cycle 2, which is Genesis 1 through 27. I plan to play the King Things, Ross King, his version of Genesis 1 through 27, put to music, and it is beautiful. And if we get it memorized before the Christmas program, great. And if we don't, I know that they will have at least the first verse memorized. So that is what we're going to work on in General Assembly, building that community vision, building vision, as well as supporting and encouraging each other every week. So jumping into new grammar. So when I was tutoring, I did geography first. So these are the placemats with the information on them, so that I don't have, my brain doesn't like throw a short while I'm trying to remember this for this video. But I think this is a song going around YouTube. We knew it before we started CC, but I don't think the Southern was in there at the time, the Southern Ocean. But North America, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australia, Africa, Antarctica, these are the continents. Indian, Arctic, and the Atlantic, and the Pacific, and the Southern. Indian, Arctic, and the Atlantic, and the Pacific, and the Southern. These are the oceans around the world. There's a break there, I think, that our previous tutor says, these are the continents around the world, and then she goes into the oceans. So whatever works for you, pointing them around, having something for them to point with, whatever you want to do. But that's the song that we've used in our community in the past. So whatever works. Oh, excuse me. And when I was tutoring, I would do geography at the table, just because it's a great place to have the maps. And then after that, we would get away from the table and go to where my board was placed. I think it's really, really important to get kids moving, especially in that those first segments of the morning, because if we're expecting them to sit still for presentations, we should let them get their gross body movements out of the way, their fine motor movements out of the way. But I think it's not realistic to expect children to sit for 3 full hours. So please, if you can incorporate any type of movement away from the table, I want to encourage you to do that. If it's sitting, cross-legged, if it's sitting on their bellies, if it's doing Supermans off of their bellies, just to encourage that core strength as well as just getting those muscles moving. It's going to benefit the kids and you in the long run. So after we do geography, then we would move on to math. And I did forget something. Before I even start geography, as a tutor, I did our expectations. We used to call them affirmations. As a director, I understand that word can be very confusing to some people. I got some feedback in the global community, not my own community, but in the global community, and so I just decided to change it. So it is our expectations. Expectations, God loves me, and in him I'm a new creation. I am kind and I'm an encourager. My mouth speaks kind words, my heart obeys and does what is right. My mind is smart and I love to learn. I will do my best. Those are expectations for CC, and I've said that I expect that from the kids in our community, but I also expect that from the parents and the tutors and myself, the directors in the community, that we are to be kind and encouragers. We can have boundaries, we can have limits, but we need to be kind and encouragers, and all of that. We do expect best. We do not expect perfection, which means it may not be your gift to draw, but we expect you to do your best. You might surprise yourself. Okay. So then we move into math after geography. I love the weekly helps that CC Connected has come up with, specifically for tutors. So math, 7 times through each math fact is the goal, but it is not a requirement. As you're figuring this out, you may figure out how to go faster. Maybe some weeks you're going to go slower. It's a reality. Some suggestions are to space the math facts out. I tried that when I was a tutor and I forgot to go back to math. So I would usually we'd get it all out of the way. But if you can remember or figure out a way, tally marks or something to remember to go back to math, all the power to you. My brain did not work that way. So funny voices, moving, having one person jump through, an obstacle course of some sort or an agility ladder, tally marks on the floor or something, while the rest of them are doing it in funny voices, gives everybody a brain break. The other thing you can do is, jumping jacks or some sort of physical activity to get them through. I'm a huge advocate for cross body, which is one of the suggestions on the weekly helps, is to, punch in the air, while they're doing the skip counting. If you can incorporate that for the older kids doing math facts, all the power to you. Timeline is one of those situations where we have 7 new families in our community, so they may not all know the timeline song yet. Our other kids who have been in, even just last year's cycle, probably know the timeline, especially these first 7 events, or first, 7 events, there's more in there, but the first 7 that we're learning from the history cards. I'm gonna encourage you to do things that you're looking at, you're saying it over and over and again together as a group. As our newer families learn the timeline, if they're listening to it at home, they're gonna get this down pretty well. So for these first couple weeks, maybe you know, if you have the cards, it is fun to put them in order. Or maybe it's the whiteboard and you're writing out the facts and you go over it a couple times, you know, maybe 3-4 times, and then maybe you erase a fact and see if they can remember what it is. You know, erase another fact, see if they can remember what it is. Because after a couple weeks, they're gonna get it figured out. And then one of the things that the class that I tutored last year loved was hide and seek. Make sure that if you're letting one of your own personal kids hide the cards, that you know where they hid them. Last year I lost, it wasn't lost forever, but it was lost until we did clean up before lunch. So just making sure that you know where the cards are. My kids loved hide and seek, so they would sing the timeline song while they were hunting for the cards, and then we'd put the cards in order. But again, that's one of those things that once your kids know the timeline song or they've heard it a few times, then it becomes a little bit beneficial for everyone. So like I said, we've got a couple families who never even made it to an open house. And so week 1 will be the parents' first time of ever seeing Foundations. History, I think this is a fun song. However, if you just play it from the app or play the song, it's going to take a lot of your time because it's a very slow song. So again, I would encourage you, read it. I'm somebody, it's really hard for me to read it without singing it. So maybe you sing it faster, see how fast you can sing it, see how slow you can sing it, you know, after you've stated it a few times. There's a tambourine section in the song if you play the song. So, you know, maybe letting them pass around a tambourine and hit it at the right time, you know, whatever. On CC Connected, one of the suggestions is, you know, using your hand motion representing a crown, or, you know, if you go to Burger King and they donate, you know, 9 crowns or whatever, then you could wear crowns for the rest of the day or whatever. Latin, there's some suggestions on CC Connected for Latin. For the kids that I tutored for in the past, you know, maybe play the song, and they played a modified version of musical chairs, so everybody had a spot. And so we would, you know, sing the song, and then it would stop, and everybody would find a chair, and then we'd sing it again, you know, 2 or 3 times, and then, you know, it would stop again, and they all were back in their chairs. So that's one way that we can do that. Another thing is playing hot and cold, where you pick an object, whether it's the dry erase marker, eraser, or a dry erase marker, or, you know, whatever you want to use as an object, a pencil, and, you know, the kids hide it while the tutor's out of the room, the parents and the kids hide it, and then the tutor comes back in, and if it's far away from the tutor, they whisper, and as the tutor gets closer to it, they get louder and they're singing until, like, hopefully the tutor finds it, and, you know, life is good. But they've sung it, you know, 6 or 7 times until the tutor finds it. English this is all over YouTube, but it's the 8 parts of speech rap. 8 parts of speech, what can they be? 8 parts of speech, now come and see. There's noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, you join with me, conjunction, interjection, preposition, adjective, adjective. 8 parts of speech, what can they be? 8 parts of speech, now come and see. There's nouns, pronouns, verb, adverb, conjunction, preposition, interjection, adjective. We'll figure it out. So that is English. And then we have science. Science is what occurred on each day of creation. What occurred on each day of creation was day 1, Earth, space, time, and light. Day 2, the atmosphere. Day 3, dry land, because it's hot, dry land and plants. Day 4, here's your twinkling stars. Sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, fish, sea creatures, and birds. Day 6, land animals, Adam and Eve. And that's our science. Yes. All right. And we did geography. So that is new grammar. Presentations. We have some tutors that are doing countdown timers, but we have a pretty full community. We have, on average, we have 1 class with 9, we have 2 classes with 8, and 1 class with 7. We are really in need of a 5th tutor if we are going to grow, or if anybody's interested in joining us mid-year. That's just a plug for my community. We also need a Challenge B director for next year. But presentations, we are really focusing on a 2-minute prepared presentation or less, so that we have time to ask questions, and we have time for everybody to have their time doing presentations. So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited for the encouragement that I'm hopeful that happens. There's some great lists of encouraging statements in the weekly help in CC Connected. So really enjoying that time and incorporating parents to help keep that presentation section going. Really good questions. Did you know that I like that too is not a question. Let's work on really good questions and really good encouraging statements after they do their presentation. Fine arts this week is the introduction of elements of shape. If you should, but if you have this book, if you sit down and actually read it, it's really, really good. The first year I didn't even start tutoring till week 6, so I really didn't have time to really look into this book. Then the year after that, I tabbed it and actually kind of worked through some of it and really, really liked it. Particularly page 60 does introduce the elements of shape. And I have little notes on the side. But it goes through the dot and circle family, the line family, the angle line. It talks about playing some visual games. Not necessarily something that maybe you'll be able to incorporate a lot of in class, but maybe you can. Maybe in the review section while you're incorporating just 1 week of memory work, But the warm-ups I really like. There's even some mirror image stuff in here. But if you have time, I would highly encourage you to at least read through, I'm sorry. I mistakenly did lesson 1, mainly page 55 through 117 is going to give you, it's going to give you so much information about, 115. So page 55 through 115 is a wealth of knowledge in the basics of elements of shape, and it's going to give you some really great foundation to help springboard them in quarter 3 of famous artists and modifying some of those or mimicking some of those artist techniques. So if you have time, like I said, I highly encourage you to read pages 55 through 117. There is so much more in here. But again, those were some of the big pieces of work that I really appreciated. In your foundation guide on page 80, 81, I believe it is. Read this. Read your foundation guide. This is going to give you a great foundation. If you got to read Cliff Notes, read this page. Okay, but that drawing with children is going to give you a wealth of knowledge. It's going to give you some great relaxation techniques to present um, the just the environment of how to draw, and that's really where I follow the whole I will do my best. Mistakes are going to happen. That's life. Let's keep doing our best. Let's stay focused on what we want to learn, what we want to see. So page 80, 81, one of the suggestions is practice the elements of shape with drawing the fish that's here in the guide. So again, I'm really emphasizing keeping it simple, using the resources that we have. I've printed off some great resources as well for my tutors to kind of dive into and pick what works really well for them. But again, really focusing on stick in the sand. Hands-on science this week is number 2 shaded and number 17 same place. One thing here, read through them. I have a playlist from a couple different tutors and directors who have put together some science like walkthroughs, but also CC Connected has done a fantastic job of videos for the science project so far. I know they've gone through 1 through 6. I'm really hoping they do the rest of the year. But again, watch the videos, read your book. The goal is to get them asking questions, noticing what they're observing. Big thing, make sure that you do number 2. The second, the numbered 2 science experiment called Shaded. Make sure you do that one first and initiate it, because it takes about 20 minutes for the thermometers to do what they're supposed to do. Pray with me for our community that we have sun that day, because I know coming up now for the next 24 or so hours, we may have risks of thunderstorms. So I'm just praying that it works itself through, that we get the rain we need, and then it's sunny on the day that we have community. So anyways, there's some really great information about hands-on science on CC Connected. And like I said, the YouTube world out there has some fantastic tutors and directors who have dove into it as well. You do not need to understand the science to present the science experiment. Preparing is a great idea, but the goal is, what do you see? What did we use? What do you think? You do not have to read to them why. Okay, that's a great thing for them to dive into at home. Really kind of focusing on the questions, the naming, the attending, the memorizing, the expressing, the storytelling. Really focus on that aspect of science. We are not lecturing them and giving them a science class. Okay, this is about observing, and you're going to jump into some really great conversations that way. Grammar review is just that. You'll be reviewing the first week's memory work, and then we'll add on up to week 7, and then by week 8 we'll do the last 6 weeks of information plus week 8. So week 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Yeah. So one of the suggestions is Duck Duck Goose while you're asking new grammar and answering together. Really focus on, especially these early weeks, of answering the memory work together. If you've got a class that can handle individual, you're going to know your class in a few more, you're going to know the group of kids in a few more weeks. But the encouragement of working together. This was a long video, and I apologize for that. I think as the weeks go by, I will get back into the swing of things as well. But here's to all of our thoughts being replaced with timeline lyrics. And have a great week.